Good morning and welcome to New Zealand. Yes, another live stream. We're going to be covering another topic around adventuring gear, and I've decided to do the ball of string. Actually, I had this lined up ages ago, but unfortunately the feedback I got from the community was mostly junk, so I had to do a lot of research myself. But I got there, as always find the information that I require. Okay, so for those of you who are unaware, you will find the start time for my video down in the description. This live stream is unlisted, so that means you have to be subscribed, you need to hit the bell button, and you also need to have your notifications turned on, otherwise you can't access the live stream later on if you're wanting to leave later on. I do an edited version of all of my live streams, but that comes out days later, and it does not include the Q&A or questions and answers and feedback and your discussions that you have with me, so they are shorter. If you are a patron, you can get access to the unlisted live streams very easily. Okay, so the sound seems to be coming through fine, which is good. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams before, normally what I do with my live streams is I will present everything first. I use slides, I'll open it up at the end of the live stream, but usually I use slides and read from my notes. It just makes it easier for me. And then you'll come back to my face in the camera and you'll be able to actually see me and have a discussion with me. How's it going, Overboard DM? How's it going, Joe? And Janjfik, I think I got that right. Okay, all right, so the sound seems to be coming through fine, but you will tell me right now before I start if there is anything wrong with it. Otherwise, grab a drink of water. Hi, Commander 1138, how's it going? So yeah, if there's any issues, you need to let me know real quick before I start, because that's exactly my plan. Oh, somebody else is trying to pipe in there. Who we've got old worldy. Anna Lee, how's it going? Okay, right. Let's set this up and yeah, grab food, drink, get settled back, and let's start talking about balls of string. I know that's a really strange topic. You should be used to it by now if you've been watching my channel. I do strange things. It's how it is. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, the topic for today, believe it or not, is clever uses of string in your Dungeons and Dragons game. Wow, gosh, is there actually something you can do with string? Well, as it happens, there are a couple of things you can do with string. So what can you do with a ball of string in your Dungeons and Dragons game? I have 20 possibilities here. Some are quite serious and others are a bit more jestful, but I have 20 options for you to select throughout your game. Believe it or not, it took me a week, maybe 2, possibly 3 weeks to figure it all out, but I got there eventually. Okay, number one is you can lay out a trail of string as you're wandering through that maze to find your way back out. So if you go into the maze and you need to get back out of the maze, then you can just lay down that ball of string and tie it off somewhere, otherwise you won't be able to get back out. Now the only problem is, if your ball of string is very short, it's not going to work, and you might be better off selecting a different method for getting out of a maze, because there is a better way of doing that rather than a ball of string. But there's always a way. You can always tie off on sections of the maze so you can see where you have been before. Okay, number two is you can use your ball of string plus a few other handy dandy items, probably some glass bottles or something that will make a clattering or jingling noise. You can set up an alarm system around your campsite with trip lines, that's what the string's for, and to hang those bottles or bits of pots and pans and whatever, so that when somebody trips over the line, they activate the jingly jangly chimes and you can hear them coming. So basically an alarm system around your camp. I've talked about some of these before with other items within your Dungeons and Dragons pack. I am just continuing the line on that. You can also use your ball of string, particularly if you have different colours, to tie off these different coloured pieces of string, or just a simple piece of string, onto a branch to avoid getting lost in a forest or a swamp or a wilderness. This sort of lets you know where you have been before, and you can always sort of look back. If you lay them out close enough together, you can see where you came from, so that if you do sort of find yourself in a tricky spot, you can backtrack to where you started off in the first place. Of course, with string, you can use that string for a trigger line, for a trap or a snare. If you're the sort of person who likes to watch people trip over things and then find themselves upside down or hit by other items that sort of hurt quite a lot, then that's another option for you. Number 5 would be you can tie your money pouch or purse to your belt, or inside your pocket would be probably a better idea, so that the thieves that are running around trying to steal your stuff find it much harder to actually steal your pocket money, you might say, your purse. If you are a wizard, a magic user who uses a wand, then you can tie a string to your wand and then tie the other end of the string to your wrist, so that it's harder for you to be disarmed. That means you can't lose your wand or drop it on the ground, or if you have to let go of the wand, it's just going to be dangling around your arm so you can actually get hold of it fairly quickly without having to worry about sort of backtracking to where you dropped it on the ground if you run away, or if you decide to sort of find yourself in a position where you can't hold on to something because somebody's done sort of, I don't know, a strange job on you with some sort of magic powers. Okay, number 7 is, now I've used this before with another video that I did, which is around sealing wax. You can use string and sealing wax to set up on a door or a window a makeshift intruder indication seal. So if the string and the seal is broken, then you can tell that somebody has gone through that door. Now, of course, somebody might be smart enough to put the seal back, but you can usually see when somebody has broken a seal and had to repatch it. So that might not work quite so well for them if they're trying to hide their trail as they pursue you. If you're the sort of person who likes to go fishing, then you can make a simple fishing rod with a branch or a stick, a hook, and some string. Tie that together and go fishing, catch yourself some food. I wouldn't suggest anything particularly large because it is string after all. It might not be able to survive that. Number 9 is create a small bow from a bent piece of wood and a piece of string, and you're going to put this in combination with a couple of pieces of wood, and you're going to make it up a bow for actually starting a fire. It's probably not quite as good as using something like flint and steel, but if you decided not to take that with you, you still have an option for creating a fire if you don't have matches or another way of creating flame for your fire camp or campfire. Okay, number 10. Right, you're going through a dungeon or a cave or something like that. You can tie off onto your string a weight, some sort of heavy weight, and when you come to a deep pool or a shallow pool or a body of water, you can check the depth of that water by lowering the weight into the water, and then of course when you pull it up you'll be able to see how deep it is because it'll be indicated by the length of string that is wet rather than the length of string that is dry. So you are going to use it for depth sounding essentially. Okay, number 11 is for tying things together. So you can tie 2 wooden poles together to make a longer pole if a 10-foot pole is not going to do it, or you can use a lot of string and a lot of poles and make yourself a fence. This will keep out the rabbits and other rodents, things like that, provided they are very, very large rather than small. Maybe it's just a makeshift fence just to keep things sort of contained. But I'm going for the longer pole because often the 10-foot pole's just not quite long enough, and a little bit more extension would be helpful. You can also use a ball of string, quite a large ball of string I would imagine, to distract a large wild cat with that ball of string so that it doesn't eat you, or should I say eat your character. We're not really worried about the players because they're not going to actually have to worry about dangerous animals or monsters. Okay, number 13 is packaging. So you want to tie that wrapping around your package or gift for an important non-player character or character within the story. Well, you're going to need some string, unless of course you actually have sellotape and duct tape in your game, and so therefore string is not really needed and you just use the sellotape. But if you don't have that sort of thing, string is the way to go. You can tie a small weight to a piece of string, just as before with the depth sound, and toss that down. Now the heavy end, not the entire ball of string, hang on to the ball of string and toss the heavy end down a passage to a dungeon to activate floor traps by dragging it towards you, so that you don't need to worry about running away from big boulders and dodging darts and so forth. The great thing about this particular use is I did a video around rope, and the thing is, string is a lot lighter than rope. So rather than having rope and doing this with a larger weight, you can use a smaller weight and a piece of string. Certainly really useful if you're dealing with a pressure plate which is only activated by light pressure rather than by heavy pressure. Okay, number 15. We're going to go fishing again. You can tie a metal spike to a pole with your piece of string and make a fishing spear and go fishing. Easy enough, unless of course you don't need a fishing spear and you can catch fish with your hands, then I wouldn't worry about it, but still an option. I know what you're thinking with this one. You can make a DIY phone. Okay, so a couple of cans, a piece of string, you know the story. You talk through one end and the sound travels down the string to the other can and you can hear them. Of course, not really useful unless you have a really long piece of string, so make sure you have a long piece of string, or just go get yourself this spell sending or a sending stone, or just shout really loudly if it doesn't matter if everybody else hears what's being communicated. So DIY phone. Let's tie somebody up, shall we? We can use a ball of string for tying up small enemies and monsters. We would use rope for larger monsters and enemies, but we can use a ball of string for tying up little critters like goblins and gremlins and fairies and so forth, the little itty bitty ones. Or is it the other way round? Do the smaller creatures tie you up with the ball of string and you provide them with the string so they don't have to bring their own? Okay, so that's I just thought it was amusing. I was thinking of Gulliver's Travels at the time and I thought, yeah, let's do that. You can take a piece of string and soak it in oil and use it as a very quick fuse that will travel to an explosive, blowing something up. Or you can not soak it in oil and the fuse will burn a lot slower, therefore you will have time to run away without blowing yourself up, which is always nice too. What about using that string and a whole bunch of pieces of sticks, rods, it could be anything that's sort of sound, and you can make yourself a splint for a broken limb. I would imagine that a broken leg, not quite so useful, but a broken wrist, maybe an arm, certainly a finger. Let's go with the string. Is anybody really going to get a piece of wood or a stake or something like that, tie it around their finger with a piece of rope? No. You want a piece of string because it's smaller. It makes perfect sense to me. I believe it is. Anyway, last one, number 20, is you can use a piece of string, provided it's strong enough and isn't going to break under the tension, although what you can do is just wet that string down and it will probably have a lot more strength to it, and create a strangle or garrote line so that you can take out those enemies from behind and they won't be able to see you coming. Yeah. Now, if you found this video helpful and informative, fantastic. I actually have many videos on how to use different pieces of adventuring gear in your Dungeons & Dragons game. Some are got a little bit jestful, some of them have got some pretty good ideas in there. It's really up to your imagination. Just because it's not a power on your character sheet does not mean it doesn't have lots of different uses to you in your game. Now, if you're not into adventuring gear and you want more advice around being a player or a dungeon master in Dungeons & Dragons 5e or just Dungeons & Dragons, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters. You're welcome to go and check those out. Make sure to check out my my Patreon page. I have affiliate links to the book depository on Amazon. I have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos. That's if you want to support the channel. Otherwise, just keep watching my videos. That's fine too. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. All right, I'm back. Okay, let's have a look here. So for those of you who are wondering, what can we talk about today? You can talk about anything you like, okay? I don't care what it is. It's fine with me. As long as it's around Dungeons. Actually, it probably doesn't even have to be about Dungeons and Dragons. But Dungeons and Dragons would be a good idea. It doesn't have to be about balls of string. I know that balls of string are sort of not right up on the top of people's priority list. If you want to talk about the Lost Mine of Phandelver, you want general Dungeon Master advice, you just want to share something with me, that's all cool. If you're a player and you want to ask some questions about anything whatsoever, let's do that. Yeah, okay, all right. And let's have a look through the chat and see what sort of advice and suggestions we have. I feel like there are some some naughty suggestions in the chat. I've already noticed a couple without my glasses. And will my glasses be any better than my eyes? Fractionally better. Fractionally. All right, I need a drink of water. Okay, so let's go straight to the top. Make sure I got everybody. I think I said hi to Janshevak, Overboard DM. Go check out Overboard DM's channel. He does a lot of stuff around miniatures and so forth. If you want to ask a question, just chuck it in real quick before I disappear. As soon as I get to the bottom of the chat, whew, I'm away. Okay, Commander's here. I said hi to Commander. Anna Lee, I said hi to Anna Lee. Kanoko, hi, how's it going? Everything sounds and looks great. Well, that's good news. Henry, hi Henry. You finally managed to catch a live stream. Well done. Now, Henry, this is your opportunity, man. If you want to ask a specific question, this is the time. Pear Shum's here. Well, string is up. That's what's up, Pear Shum. We're talking about string. What do we got here? Will next video be clever uses of what? Integer and boolean. I don't know. I think we are coming to the end of the uses of Dungeons and Dragons adventuring gear. Here's the thing. There's 18 or 17 of you. What piece of adventuring gear have I not talked about that you want me to talk about? Put it in the chat right now. Start typing. The more votes or the more comments on the same item that I haven't done before, those are the ones that I will do. Sound fair to you? You can't really respond because it's sort of one way. You can sort of say something in the chat, but yeah, that's what I suggest you do. Put down a piece of item you would like me to do a video on. Adventuring gear, what I have not already done. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Prepared to cook and survive. No, you're not a stranger. You're not a stranger. We know you. What's this, Annalie? What do you got here? I am doing very well, thank you. Stranger is the best way to D&D these things. Keeping it interesting. Strange, keeping it interesting. Well, yeah. I mean, look, the reason I do these videos is everybody else is doing character build videos and how to use your different abilities and powers and spells and Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like everybody just keeps looking at the character sheet rather than using their brain, which is a shame because I thought Dungeons and Dragons 5e was going to move us towards a much more open play and, you know, breaking those limits, but it's not really looking that way. It feels like it's going back the other way, unfortunately. One use of string would be to distract a tabaxi in the party if she's causing trouble. Yes, I suppose if you want to distract the tabaxi. Are they really going to be that interested in the string? Maybe they would, particularly if you've got somebody who feels like they must role play that particular race, that particular way. Look, to be fair, the ball of string and the wildcat was more a result of a jestful comment on Facebook. And as a result, it took me a long time to find a whole lot of ideas that actually made sense. That weren't just little quirps and quips and so forth, because that's mostly what I got from Facebook. It wasn't very helpful, so it took me a long time to put this video together. What do you got here, Commander? Can you brand the string like paracord? I don't know. I'll braid it. You can, look, you can braid string. Now, my understanding is if you wax the string, it's much easier to braid. If you don't wax the string, it's much harder to braid, because it comes apart. As you're going, you're winding it together, it can unwind on you. So you really want it to be waxed together. Otherwise, wet down your string so it's more likely to stay together, sort of stick together as you're doing your plait. Now, braided string is very strong. For those of you who don't know, if you've ever had to make sort of like a bone carving, I suppose, who nowadays makes bone carvings, apart from myself, and maybe a few tiny fraction of the population in the world. So when you're doing it, you have to have a string or a cord, and that cord is usually made from high quality string, and it's waxed. And we don't just use the string like that. What we do is we'll do like a 3 or 4 plait, and it makes it much stronger. So instead of the string for your bone carving lasting like a year, it lasts like 10 years. That's how much stronger and more durable it becomes. So yes, waxing and applying water, but wax is probably the best option. What do you got here, Piersham? Could you use it to knit a a mask? I suppose you could. I was going to mention knitting with string, and it is actually something that has been done in reality. So yes, you could. So yes, knitting and even a plait, always a good idea. Like a D&D wizard lightsaber. Well, I suppose it is, yes. The string isn't really a using the force though, is it? It's just don't make the string too long, otherwise you're going to trip over it, by the way. If you tie it to your wand and it's dragging on the ground, you made your string way too long. Annalie, what do you got here? Do you think that tying a weapon wand to a wrist or hand could have save movement or add advantage of some sort during, say, combat? Look, my feeling is that there is, in Pathfinder, there was a piece of equipment that was basically very cheap, and you would attach it to your wand and to your wrist, and that would essentially stop you from being disarmed, somebody being able to pull your wand out of your hand, because there were some abilities that allowed you to do that. I suppose you could do the same with the sword, tie it on, but the problem with that is you need to be able to stow the weapon as well at some point. Whereas with a wand, really what you want with a wand, don't you, is you want a quick release out of the forearm, and with a cord so it doesn't go too far, spring-loaded. But then, of course, if you drop the wand or need to drop the wand because you've got to do something else, it's still around. Yes, you can use your piece of string and a weight for a plumb bob, so for making sure that something is perfectly straight, that's a good idea. Yep. The bikini, I think that's probably... how useful is that in Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah, I'm trying to imagine that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that that's going to be hugely useful to you. The plumb bob might be useful. I mean, some of my suggestions were pretty appalling. I do realise this. The phone idea was not great. Bikini, it depends, man. Anyway. Annalie, what do you got here? Plumb bob. Yes, I like the plumb bob. It's actually not a bad idea. You could use it to figure out the depth of a well or hole. Yes, that's what I had actually mentioned. Okay, we're going to move down here real fast because it looks like we're just about at the end. And oops, did I just move too fast? Maybe I did. Critical Role. You're watching Critical Role? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Prepared to cook and survive. I don't know about the polka dots, mate. I don't know about the polka dots. Yeah. Well, it is a substitute. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily as good as having a see-through piece of string. See-through string would probably be more useful as a tripwire, but it's better than nothing, right? The small ball bearings. Yes, I did a video on ball bearings after watching Marisha Ray using her ball bearings in the game. And I feel like ball bearings are actually quite useful. It's just don't try to use them in combat. They're not necessarily going to be hugely useful in combat, and you need the right type of surface. Back to string. Ball bearings are fun though. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, what else we got here? String we have washing line. Yes, that's right. Tourniquet. Nice one. Prepared to cook and survive. Yes, you can make a tourniquet from it. Piece of wood and the string for tourniquet. Although I think that's probably more likely to cut off the circulation and wind up with a limb having to be amputated. And then of course the washing line's not a bad idea. I think that's a makeshift washing line you can carry and put up anywhere you like. Okay, so I know a lot of people thinking not hugely useful, certainly useful in real life, but not hugely useful in my Dungeons and Dragons game. I need to drink, I know. Now I like the idea of wrapping the string around something to give you a better grip. Don't forget that chalk. We were talking about chalk the other day. Well, months. Was it a year ago? A month ago? I don't know. We've talked about chalk before. Around adding advantage saving movement. Yeah, I did, Annalie. I did see the question. I really think that's really up to the dungeon master in terms of advantage and saving movement. I personally feel that if the wand is tied onto your wrist, then you shouldn't have to worry about having to do something major. It should be like an interaction to grab hold of the wand off the string, that's dangling off there. A wheel of cheese. Now I'm confused by that one. You'll have to explain to me. Is that for cutting through the wheel of cheese? What's that, Scott? A magnifying glass. Okay, so the magnifying glass. Wheel of cheese. So ideas. These are the ideas for the next video. How can we use a wheel of cheese? God. The magnifying glass. There's a lot of different ideas for a magnifying glass, Scott. I like that idea a lot. And that's something we should do, absolutely. Because we've actually created some makeshift magnifying glasses in the past with other pieces of equipment. So that's a great idea. I'm thinking that's the one I want to stick with. But we'll see. We'll see what other people have come up with. Rivers RPG channel. Not too much is up. I'm just here. Enoch Greensock. I think that, did I get it right? Right, yep. Being someone who played many RPG video games before ever playing D&D, the idea that you could attempt to use any item you found is literally any way you want is one of the biggest appeals to me. Well, I think that's a good thing. I'm glad it is. Which is quite strange considering the different aspects of Dungeons and Dragons. It is, because of course that doesn't seem to be the focus nowadays. I just found the freedom and lack of restraints which programming games have appealing. Yeah, no, the freedom is part of the reason why people play Dungeons and Dragons, and you can never get the kind of freedom that playing a tabletop game can give you compared to a video game. That's just a reality. What's this, Pesham? Fred, what would you advise an adventurer to have in an adventuring pack? Oh my God, you want me to ask? I did a video. I thought I put a video together about all of the pieces of items of stuff that people should have in the adventuring pack. Do I need to do another video? I don't know that I need to do another video. Maybe I do. I'll have to think about that. I'll have a look at the old video and see if it needs to be updated. Or rather, programmed games have restraint. Yeah. Yeah, more imagination with Dungeons and Dragons, but that really depends on the people playing the game. If they don't have any imagination, then you won't get very much, and it'll look like a video game. Into combat, out of combat, and that's pretty much it. And little links between. Yeah, no. Now he's not. I don't think Scott is talking about the spyglass. It's quite a heavy price, the spyglass, but a magnifying glass, which is probably not an item you can find in the player's handbook, but a magnifying glass is a good idea because it's not the full unit, right? It's just a piece of glass that has got a curve on each side that allows for magnifying. So I think that's actually not a bad idea. I think we've kind of answered that, Green Sock. What? Make a tabaxi roll a wisdom check at disadvantage to see if they were distracted. Yeah, like I said, that's really going to be up to your Dungeon Master, particularly if they are running the character. Oops. What's that, Green Sock? Apologies for splitting my comments in several... the character limit. That's alright, I understand. I'm reading through things as quickly as I can. Would it be fair to allow advantage or for a save or save movement if one has their weapon, wand, so forth tied to their wrist and hand? I think it would be fair enough to do that. I think it should be just something like an interaction, right, as part of your movement to actually just grab hold of the wand again. Wax on, wax off. Yes, yes. Well, I've done wax. I've done candle wax. We've done the candle. We've done sealing wax. I think we've done the wax to death. We couldn't do any more wax. I think we're leaving the wax alone now. So Annalee, you DM for kids a lot, and they have a lot of imagination. It's funny how kids seem to have more imagination and come up with more ideas than adults. Hate to say it, it tends to happen. Although kids do have a tendency to want to burn absolutely everything to the ground. Certainly I've found around 13, 14, although that's sort of more teenager, isn't it? But it can be a bit younger than that. I feel like the answer to everything sometimes seems to be fire. You asked it twice. Yeah, I got the idea. Notification, shucks. I'm not sure what that means. Be saucy. Oh yes, you've missed it, have you? You've only just shown up. It happens. What can I do? YouTube only operates a particular way, and then they'll change how they operate later on. Fred, it's better to have a bikini and not need one than to need one and not have one. Okay, Pesham. Have you taken a look at how to use weapons differently than just attacking? Might be interesting, not sure there's enough for a video. Okay, so Joe, that's a good idea. I'm just not sure how to present that. It's going to take me a long time to get my head around that. I know what you're talking about, but how would I make a video about that? I've done improvised attacks where you could use anything, improvised weapons and so forth. Improvised actions, I've talked about those sorts of topics before. Whether I need to do it again or I need to expand on it or change it a little bit, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to have a think about it, Joe, because that sounds like a very difficult topic. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just saying it sounds like a really difficult topic. Yes, that's right. The ball bearing video had a lot of balls on it. I need a drink. Yes, I do. Hi, Mason. How's it going? Well, as it happens, Mason, I know it has been a while. I am doing all right. I've had 6 days on work, and I finally got a day off, and I'm here doing my YouTube video or live stream. And I'm quite glad to be getting a rest because I am buggered. I'm usually on as me. Thank you. Could I do a video on creative uses for Unseen Servant and Mage Hand sometime? Okay. Mason, it's a good idea. I have been thinking of bringing back the spell videos. I started doing spell videos a long time ago, and then I sort of stopped doing them because I was dealing with spells that were much more complicated. And the problem with a spell, beyond the ones that I've already done, is they are not 3-minute videos. They are much longer than that. There's a lot of information, and to do any justice to them, it would take more time. And I think a lot of the time people are looking for a video content that's just the information they need really quickly, but they don't understand that something like Counterspell or Dispel Magic or Mage Hand, although it's a very small description, the uses and how you can utilize Mage Hand is very different. Unseen Servant, again, a lot of different uses, but very dependent on the Dungeon Master, and so therefore I could provide options, and as a player you could get shot down quite heavily unless your Dungeon Master watches those videos themselves. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, Mason, unless they watch those videos themselves and they open themselves up to those as being reasonable options of play rather than it being gaming the system. And I know a lot of Dungeon Masters are concerned about expanding the use of a spell too far and it becoming far too useful. Now, Mage Hand is a cantrip. Infinite uses. You don't have to worry about using up a spell slot. So if you can use it to do a lot of different things, then it's one of those things that a Dungeon Master will say, well, I don't really want them using Mage Hand for everything. And I've had games where the player with Mage Hand has literally opened doors, opened chests, as long as the weight hasn't been too much, they've tried to use it for anything. They've even tried to use it to deactivate traps, which is probably asking a bit much, or to try to manipulate and utilize thieves' tools. I feel like that's stepping on the toes of some abilities, but I will certainly think about that, Mason, because you probably will see the spell videos coming back for the players, and hopefully the Dungeon Masters will find them useful as well. Hi, Steve. Steve Parks is here. What do you got here? Maybe use using string as a makeshift alarm by stringing it around the perimeter of a camp and hanging cooking pots and utensils from it. Yeah, I think I mentioned that, Steve. Yep. Maybe you already said that while I was talking. I still haven't gotten to the bottom of the chat, so I'm probably not moving fast enough. String people people without dark vision to people. Here's the thing. I've always found that tying people together with string or rope doesn't always result in good results. It sounds like a really good idea until you put it into practice. And you wind up with somebody going over the edge and everybody has to try and take the strain or deal with being pulled over the side as well. Or they can't move around because suddenly the fire-breathing dragon is able to get at them, then they're all tied together in a nice cone-like shape. And of course, if the dragon decides to pick up one, they all get picked up. So, complicated. So it can be a bit of a problem. Stiffen the string and use it as a piercing weapon. How would you do that? I have no idea. Could use the string with a sleight of hand to help animate objects, to trick or distract. I'm still confused by that one. Hi, Alec. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Might need to use my imagination a bit more. What do we got here, Alec? The freedom aspect is actually what kept me playing D&D. It seemed like the game would become chaotic if it sounds like many games do. Well, look, to be fair, if you've got a Dungeon Master who's putting in limitations that are reasonable, then it won't get out of hand. And I find that often you don't have players who are going to try to do absolutely every crazy thing out there. There might be an occasional player who might try that, but they don't all do that. Maybe clever uses of certain niche spells could be the next video. Yeah, I think we might be moving on to spells, although I really like the magnifying glass. I think like the magnifying glass should get a video. The magnet to the end of a string and retrieve, steal, move objects. Now, Anna Lee, that's a really good idea. I had forgotten that. I guess the problem with them for me is I was thinking Dungeons and Dragons, do they have magnets? But they probably do have magnets, you know. Magnetizing something's not that difficult. So that's a really good one. So Anna Lee gets a triple star. That's a big A+ for your suggestion, because I think that's a really smart idea. Yeah, Nystals, the Nystals video, yes. Yeah, that's been a while since I've done a spell video. I know I need to do some more. Use string to tie messages to a bird. Yes, absolutely. You need to use string to tie your message to a pigeon, a homing pigeon or a bird or animal, so that it can take your message to somebody else. Absolutely. So I'm going to give you another triple A for that idea. Well done. Okay, Overboard DM. How about, now I can see the bottom of the chat now. Thank God for that. I need another drink of water. Now, I think Overboard DM, or Joe, is just about to give us a very, very clever idea. And I believe this topic came up not so long ago with nerd immersion. How about a video on all of the different parts of a monster or creature that can be harvested for use as poison or makeshift armor or improvised weapons or full-blown weapons and armor or maybe clothing. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think my concern with harvesting stuff from an animal to make weapons and armor is that we're now talking about, if it's just about making mundane armor and not magical armor, I think that's fine. I don't like the idea of crafting magic items. I've done so many videos on crafting magic items. I feel like that could be, but I like the idea of harvesting monster or creature parts for the use of potions, spells, or rituals, or things like that. Things that might have some sort of use to them. I think that's quite a good idea. I don't know how that would look. That feels like a very broad concept. The Norfolk Eye. Yeah, do the monster's abilities with those monster parts remain when you harvest it from the dead animal or creature or monster? It's a good point. Yeah, and I think that's a better idea, Joe, that harvesting these parts from a monster or creature is worth selling to somebody who can use it for something that you can't use it for. So, you know, I would imagine that these are going to be really useful to somebody who deals with alchemy, stuff like that, or herbalism. Yeah, the armor on an Umber Hulk would be quite a clever idea, or even the eyes from an Umber Hulk. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just don't know how that would look. It's a good idea though, and if I can figure out how to shape it, I'll do it. Absolutely. And I know the problem is that a lot of people are going to say, yeah, but we need mechanics around it. You know, one of the things that I think is quite silly when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons is trying to attach mechanics to an aspect to the game that does not need to have any mechanical aspect to it whatsoever. Hi dancers, how's it going? I can see you down there, bottom of the chat. So I don't think we'll be talking about so much the mechanical side of it, and if we did, it would be very, very simple, because I feel like that's not something we should set. I feel like that is something a dungeon master should just decide. You know, is that part of the animal still intact? Cutting it free, is it really something that requires a lot of skill, or do you need to be a butcher? I mean, I don't know. When I think about it, depending on its size, I would imagine that, you know, you can probably cut most parts of an animal free without too much trouble, provided they're not very, very, very small, like a bee. Catch a bee, freeze it, the stinger, You grab the stinger. Yeah, I suppose you can use the stinger from a bee. The problem is you've got to also have the sac that's attached to the stinger for it to be really useful to you, right? So that's a big... Is that big chimpo? Yep, that's your suggestion. The stinger. Save the stinger, freeze it. I think all bees should be on stingers. Okay, all right. What's that? Glow powders may be of good use. So you're talking about glowworms. I think the idea of getting glowworms and sticking them into a jar, I think we've talked about that before with the jar video. Taking a glowworm or fireflies and chucking them into a jar to use them as a light source. Well, you got two of them today, triple stars. They were really good suggestions, by the way. I love flail snails. Now, somebody's mentioned something about the flail snail, that regarding magic reflection shell or even alive. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So it's a good idea. The flail snail would be difficult to take out, I would imagine. But the problem is Dungeons and Dragons are set up so that you can kill the monsters. So not a bad idea. I'll have to think about that topic and see where it can go. I'll do a bit of research, see what other people have done, and then I'll come back to that topic. I would not imagine that I will do a video on harvesting animal and monster parts anytime soon, because it feels like it's quite a complicated idea. Not that I have not, as a dungeon master, had players do it many times, but usually I don't get too involved. I just say, okay, so what part of the animal do you want? And then later on they have a discussion with me about what they want to try and do with it. And usually they want to do something crazy with it. But there are others who just want to eat it, as Big Chimpo is pointing out. I think some kind of wisdom check would be needed to see if they could identify the organs. So organs are a different thing, I think, because organs are inside, but identifying an eyeball or a mouth or a fang or a claw, I don't think, the armor on an animal, I don't think you need to figure out how to identify that. Organs are a bit different, so I think that would make a lot of sense, but I don't necessarily feel like a video has to have the mechanical aspect around that, because really all it needs to be, as far as I'm concerned, is it could be a wisdom check, it could be an arcana check, it could be a medicine check, it could be a nature check, it could be a survival check. It really just depends on what the dungeon master feels is reasonable to try to deal with that. And cutting it free, if you've got a small dagger, then is that good enough, or do you need to have a scalpel? Are we talking about something that requires fine cuts to actually achieve, and you can't do it with a big hoary dagger or a sword or a short sword? Depends on the size of the animal. So I think a lot of that needs to be left to the dungeon master. But certainly we'll go back to that. The gourmet options of eating certain parts of a creature. I think that's a fun one. Yep, we'll talk about that at some point. Speaking of powder, I would really like capture a pixie and shake it in a bag, not killing it or killing them, so she releases the fairy dust. You can make magical stuff. Well, isn't the idea is to have the fairy on hand, and wherever you need to have it, you just shake them? God. Are you doing the Peter Pan shake? Grab Tinkerbell and give her a shake. Speaking of herbalism, it is very difficult to find a lot of uses of plants for potions and poisons. Ideas for using both real and made-up plants without magic would be really useful. Now, I did a video, Annalie, by the way, I did a video on the components for creating a healing potion. So are you talking about that? What sort of components would you need to have for a particular type of potion that somebody's trying to make? I think that's actually quite a good idea too. I like that idea. I think that's very smart. Some very good ideas. I'm going to have to make sure I write them all down. What do you got here, Joe? So this gets back to to items. I definitely want to have something to store eyeballs in. Yeah, well, that's what the jar's for, right? Or a head or something that's going to smell really bad and rot. Well, yes. Well, you need to have something to keep it preserved, and that's what that jar is for. Or the bottle, if you can fit it in the bottle, and it's not going to get all squished up. Yes, that's right. String is useful for tying up fairies, for interrogation. As long as they don't teleport. If they teleport, that could be problematic. Love the fairy dust idea. Yeah, and it's cute. It's cute. We'll go in there. Gentle repose. There are plenty of uses for gentle repose. It's not something that people use very often, though, which is kind of odd because in the past, in my older games, when we were playing 4E and 3.5 and 2E advanced, it was used a bit more. It doesn't seem to get used very much nowadays. Certainly not at my tables. You'd like a line of fairy dust. Sure, we can sort that out. Okay, look, I've got some ideas, and I know what I'll be doing for the next player video. I think the magnifying glass is the way to go, personally. And then we'll be looking at things like how to harvest body parts from animals. I don't know when that would happen, but I like the idea of the herbalism stuff. I think that's a very smart idea. And certainly the spell videos, the more involved and complicated videos. We'll do that at some point as well. I don't know when. I'll do the things that catch my attention. What's this? Pockets of holding versus bags of holding. Pockets of holding. I understand gentle repose as some sort of magical mummification. Yeah, it's just to preserve it. Anyway, it's time for me to leave and for the rest of you to go and get on with your lives, because I'm sure there are plenty of other things you could be doing rather than hanging out with me on this lovely day, and I'm gonna disappear in a second. So and I'm trying desperately to find a picture. I don't know, am I ever going to find it? Oh, there it is. There we go. We're going to stick with this one. So wherever you are in the world, look after your family, your friends, yourself. I'm sure for those of you who are up very early or very late, that it's been tough because my live streams are so long. But I do appreciate you hanging out with me. It's been a lot of fun, and you've given me a lot of really good ideas, and thank you very much. And yes, guess what? I do use people's ideas in my video content. It does happen. Might take a while, but it does happen. So till next time, keep rolling those 20s.